Welcome to Design Domination, where you'll gain confidence, clarity, and a competitive edge in a crowded marketplace so you can dominate your competition. Hi, and thanks for tuning in. I'm Colleen Gratzer, and in this episode of Design Domination, I'm answering the question, do logos need to be accessible? Do logo designs need to meet accessibility requirements? Stick around because the answer will probably surprise you. Now, if you've spent any kind of time perusing the accessibility guidelines, WCAG, then you may have noticed that 1.4.3 contrast minimum for level AA says that text must have a certain ratio with its background, with an exception being logos. Another guideline, 1.4.11, has to do with non-text contrast. Non-text elements are those that are considered meaningful as opposed to decorative. Examples of non-text elements could be a search icon in place of the word search, right? Or it could be a social media icon. This guideline calls for non-text elements to have a minimum contrast ratio of 3:1 against their backgrounds. Again, though, logos are exempt here, and that's because a logo has a specific visual representation for a brand. Now, having said all that, I will now say this. The accessibility guidelines are just that. They're just guidelines. And following them does not guarantee accessibility either. Logos are a prime example of something that we can make more accessible by going beyond what is suggested by WCAG. Think about this. If a logo includes a brand name or a tagline, and they don't have sufficient contrast against the background that they appear on, then the words might be hard, if not impossible, for individuals with certain visual disabilities to read. Now, if a logo contains non-text elements that do not have sufficient contrast with their background, then those same individuals may not be able to see them. The design of a logo is really important for people to recognize it. In fact, I looked up a few things. Here's an interesting scientific stat that's mentioned in a PubMed article. Research at 3M Corporation concluded that humans process visual data 60,000 times faster than text. The article also mentioned a statement by Dr. Linnell Burmark, who's a visual literacy expert, and they said words are processed by our short-term memory, which can only retain about 7 bits of data. Images, on the other hand, go directly into long-term memory where they are indelibly etched. So we recognize images faster than we do reading words. We can recognize a logo by its artwork, whether that's a shape, an icon, or another type of non-text element. Even the colors, we recognize this immediately. And that's before reading the text, that's part of it. Well, why does all this matter? Well, let's take a look at a few examples. Here's a coconut oil jar with a Vitacost logo in yellow on a white background. The logo is nowhere else to be found on this particular product, okay? And then same for their Himalayan salt package, which uses a light salmon color on white for the logo. How about this Alba deodorant? The logo is white on light green. My point is, if someone cannot see the logo to read it or to recognize it by how it looks because of the lack of contrast, then how will you know which brand it is? You might think, Colleen, you're just taking this way too far. You could argue that, well, you know what the package design looks like, even if you can't see the logo, right? So you could still find that product. You'd be able to still recognize it if you wanted to buy it again. Well, but what if they change their package design? Okay, how about this protein bar, right? The Aloha logo is white on a yellow background. So it's very hard to read. This also, though, gives us an example of how low contrast for non-text elements, the certified B Corporation symbol, how that, makes it's much harder to read. And on the back, I don't know who at all could read this ingredients list, especially being small in size and in all caps on top of that. Okay, but there are also low contrast symbols that signify that this product is vegan and kosher. Well, that's important information for a lot of people. If they don't see that at all because of a visual disability, or they don't take time to carefully inspect the package to even come across it, well, they'll likely move on to the next product that they're absolutely sure is indeed vegan or kosher. I mean, it's just that simple. So I want to leave you with 2 thoughts. How successful is a logo design if it cannot be read or recognized by a good percentage of people in the audience? And how much more successful is a logo design that is more readable and recognizable by everyone that doesn't rely on someone's visual ability? If you want to learn more about how accessibility affects branding, check out my talk at the free online Take the Cake Summit by Designer Boss. This free 2-day online summit is all about helping women in design stop settling for crumbs and finally take the whole cake. You'll hear from 25 expert women in design sharing juicy behind-the-scenes business lessons. You'll also get live Q&As and panel chats about pricing, mindset, branding, and balance. And of course, my session on accessibility and how it relates to branding and also your business. And then there's also the optional Boss Bundle, which includes over $2,000 worth of different resources, goodies, templates, and bonuses from the speakers. You can get your free ticket by going to creative-boost.com/designerboss. And if you decide to upgrade to get the Boss Bundle and you use my link, then I'll get a few bucks for referring you. Using that link doesn't affect what you pay. It just rewards me for, telling you about it and you using it. I hope to see you there.